At my book signing, my thieving sister-in-law appeared in my stolen clothes begging, "I'm sorry, I need help." I looked her dead in the eye and said something that crushed her completely. "I'm sorry too, but I don't know anyone by that name." The words came out colder than I'd intended, but watching Emily's face crumble in real time felt like vindication wrapped in justice. She stood there in my favorite burgundy cashmere sweater, the one I'd searched for frantically before my last book tour, paired with the designer jeans I'd bought for my first television interview. Even her manicure was done with the expensive nail polish she'd lifted from my vanity during one of her sisterly bonding visits. The security guard I'd discreetly signaled moved closer, and Emily's desperate eyes darted between us. She'd clearly expected tears, forgiveness, maybe even financial rescue. Instead, she got the blank stare I reserved for strangers trying to interrupt my signings. "Jennifer, please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Tom left me. I lost the apartment. I have nowhere to go." I continued signing books for the growing line of actual fans, each signature deliberate and unhurried. "Security, could you please escort this person away? She's disrupting my event." Emily's legs seemed to give out slightly as the guard approached. She clutched at the book table, knocking over my water bottle. "You can't do this. We're family." "Family doesn't steal from family," I replied, without looking up from the book I was personalizing. "Family doesn't manipulate and gaslight and destroy trust. You made your choices, Emily. Now live with them." As security guided her away, I caught her reflection in the bookstore window. She looked broken, desperate, and utterly defeated. It should have felt cruel, but all I felt was the satisfying click of a door finally closing on the most toxic chapter of my life. What Emily didn't understand as she was escorted from my book signing was that the woman she was begging for help was nothing like the naive, trusting person she'd manipulated for months. That version of me had died the day I discovered her systematic theft, replaced by someone far more strategic and infinitely less forgiving. My transformation hadn't happened overnight. It began the moment I installed that hidden camera and watched Emily methodically steal my belongings while pretending to help me with makeup tutorials. But it crystallized when Tom accused me of being a parasite living off our parents while Emily nodded along, knowing she was wearing stolen clothes and using stolen cosmetics. The writing career that Emily and Tom had always dismissed as playing on the computer had actually generated $340,000 in income over the past 2 years. My debut novel had hit the New York Times bestseller list, and the movie rights had sold for 6 figures. My literary agent, Lisa Hendricks, had negotiated a 3-book deal worth $750,000, with book 2 already climbing the charts. But my professional success was just one advantage Emily couldn't have anticipated. My years of working remotely had taught me to document everything, maintain detailed financial records, and approach problems systematically. When I'd moved out of my parents' house, I hadn't just packed my belongings, I'd built a comprehensive case file. Every item Emily had stolen was documented, with photographs, receipts, and serial numbers where applicable. The hidden camera footage was backed up in multiple locations. I'd even tracked down security footage from stores where she'd worn my clothes, creating a timeline that would make any prosecutor's job effortless. More importantly, my success had connected me with people who understood exactly how to handle situations like this. My entertainment lawyer, Marcus Beaumont, specialized in intellectual property theft and had dealt with numerous cases involving family members who felt entitled to others' success. My financial advisor, Patricia Lane, had helped me structure my assets to protect them from exactly the kind of manipulation Emily and Tom had attempted. The publishing industry had also introduced me to investigative journalist David Crane, who'd helped fact-check details in my novels and had become a trusted friend. When I'd mentioned my family situation, David had offered some illuminating perspective. Toxic family members always assume you'll stay trapped by guilt and obligation. They never prepare for the possibility that you'll simply walk away. My accountant had documented every dollar I'd contributed to my parents' household expenses, every gift I'd bought, every bill I'd helped cover. When Emily and Tom tried to paint me as a financial burden, the numbers told a very different story. Over 3 years, I'd contributed $89,000 to household expenses while living in my childhood room and helping care for aging parents. Meanwhile, Emily and Tom had contributed exactly nothing while treating my parents' home like a free resource center. They'd eaten meals they didn't pay for, used utilities they didn't contribute to, and borrowed money they never repaid. My documentation showed a pattern of exploitation that went far beyond stealing my personal belongings. The strategic response I'd planned began the moment I blocked their numbers and moved out. I hadn't just walked away. I'd carefully constructed a comprehensive plan to ensure they could never manipulate me again while facing appropriate consequences for their actions. My first call was to Marcus Beaumont, explaining the theft and requesting his guidance on legal remedies. Marcus was immediately interested, particularly when I showed him the camera footage and financial documentation. "Jennifer, this isn't just family drama," he said during our video consultation. "Emily committed multiple felonies, and Tom participated by receiving stolen goods and attempting to gaslight you about it. The financial manipulation adds another layer of potential fraud charges." Marcus recommended documenting everything with a private investigator to ensure the evidence would be admissible if we pursued criminal charges. He also suggested consulting with a family law attorney to explore civil remedies, since the theft had occurred in the context of a pattern of financial exploitation. "The beauty of your situation is that you have resources they probably don't expect you to have," Marcus continued. "Most theft victims don't have professional-grade documentation and the financial means to pursue comprehensive legal action. You do." Patricia Lane, my financial advisor, helped me understand the broader implications. "Jennifer, your income puts you in a different category than most people dealing with family theft. You can afford to pursue this properly, which changes the entire dynamic." Patricia walked me through the process of securing my assets, changing account access codes, and ensuring Emily and Tom couldn't cause any further financial damage. She also recommended a forensic accountant to review my family's financial interactions, particularly any money that had flowed through my parents' household. "The key is making this expensive for them, while protecting yourself completely," Patricia explained. "They're used to taking advantage of your emotional attachments. Now you use your professional advantages to ensure they face real consequences." The private investigator Patricia recommended was Helen Foster, a former police detective who specialized in family fraud cases. Helen's initial assessment was encouraging. "Your evidence is exceptional and the pattern is clear, but I want to dig deeper into their current situation, see what vulnerabilities they might have." Helen's investigation revealed information that made my strategic planning even more effective. Emily and Tom were living far beyond their means, financing their lifestyle through credit cards and small loans. Tom's income was inconsistent, and Emily had never held a steady job. They'd been counting on continued access to my parents' resources and eventual inheritance to maintain their standard of living. "They're financially vulnerable," Helen reported during our follow-up call. "Any legal pressure could force them into bankruptcy, especially if it affects Tom's employment or their ability to get credit." But Helen's most valuable discovery was that Emily had been stealing from other family members too. She'd taken jewelry from Tom's aunt during a holiday visit, borrowed money from cousins without repaying it, and even stolen gift cards from my parents' friends during parties. "This isn't opportunistic theft," Helen concluded. "Emily has a pattern of financial exploitation that goes back years. She's targeted family members because she assumes they won't press charges." Armed with Helen's investigation, I scheduled meetings with both a criminal attorney and a civil litigation specialist. The criminal attorney, James Blackwood, reviewed the evidence and was immediately confident about prosecution prospects. Emily committed burglary, theft, and potentially fraud, James explained. The video evidence is clear, and the pattern of behavior establishes intent. The fact that she manipulated family relationships to gain access makes this particularly egregious. James recommended filing criminal charges immediately, both to establish a legal record and to prevent Emily from continuing to victimize other family members. People like Emily don't stop unless they face serious consequences. Prison time and permanent criminal records tend to modify behavior very effectively. The civil attorney, Rebecca Sterling, focused on financial recovery and deterrence. Your documentation allows us to seek damages beyond just the value of stolen items. We can include emotional distress, security costs, professional consultation fees, and punitive damages. Rebecca estimated that civil damages could reach $150,000 or more, depending on how we structured the case. The goal isn't just compensation. It's making this so expensive for her that she never considers targeting you again. But Rebecca's most strategic suggestion involved timing. File the civil suit immediately, before the criminal charges. Force her to choose between spending money on legal defense or accepting a settlement that includes admissions of guilt and permanent restraining orders. Within 2 weeks of my book signing encounter with Emily, I'd filed both criminal charges and a comprehensive civil lawsuit. The legal documents were delivered to Emily and Tom's apartment simultaneously by professional process servers, ensuring they understood the seriousness of the situation. Helen provided regular surveillance updates, and Emily's reaction was exactly what we'd predicted. She immediately began calling family members, trying to explain away the legal actions and generate sympathy. But Tom's reaction was more interesting. He contacted a divorce attorney within 24 hours of being served. Tom isn't going to go down with her, Helen reported. He's protecting himself financially and legally. Emily's about to discover that her support system is collapsing. My parents called within days, confused and upset about the legal actions. After years of enabling Emily and Tom's behavior, they were struggling to understand why I was overreacting to family problems. Jennifer, surely this can be worked out without lawyers, Mom pleaded during our phone conversation. Mom, Emily stole thousands of dollars worth of my belongings while Tom accused me of being a parasite, I replied calmly. She manipulated family relationships to commit crimes, then tried to gaslight me about it. This isn't a family problem, it's a criminal problem. Dad was more direct. This is going to tear our family apart. Emily tore our family apart when she chose to steal from me, I said. I'm just refusing to pretend it didn't happen. The most satisfying part was explaining to them that the legal actions were already funded and moving forward regardless of their opinions. I wasn't asking for their permission or support. I was informing them of decisions I'd already made. The consequences escalated faster than even I had anticipated. Emily's attempts to find legal representation were complicated by her lack of resources and the strength of evidence against her. Tom filed for divorce and moved out, leaving Emily responsible for their full apartment rent and legal bills. Marcus Beaumont reported that Emily's public defender was already discussing plea negotiations, recognizing that fighting the charges would be futile given the video evidence and documentation. She's looking at mandatory restitution plus potential jail time, Marcus explained. Her attorney wants to negotiate a settlement that avoids the worst consequences. The civil case progressed even more favorably. Rebecca Sterling had structured the lawsuit to include not just the stolen items, but security costs, legal fees, and damages for emotional distress and professional disruption. The total demand was $180,000 plus permanent restraining orders. Emily can't afford to fight this, Rebecca reported. Her attorney has indicated they want to settle quickly to minimize further legal costs. But the most devastating consequence for Emily wasn't financial, it was social. Word of the legal action spread through our extended family and social networks, and people began reassessing their own experiences with her. Family members came forward with stories of missing items, borrowed money that was never repaid, and manipulative behavior they'd previously ignored. Helen's investigation expanded as more victims emerged. Emily's pattern of theft and manipulation was far more extensive than anyone had realized, involving multiple family members across several years. "She's been running a long-term con on your entire family," Helen concluded, using emotional relationships to avoid accountability while systematically stealing from everyone who trusted her. 6 months after the book signing, Emily's life had completely collapsed. She pleaded guilty to felony theft charges and received 2 years probation plus 200 hours of community service and mandatory restitution. The civil case settled for $145,000, with Emily agreeing to permanent restraining orders and admission of guilt. Tom's divorce was finalized with him keeping all marital assets, since Emily's criminal activity had violated their prenuptial agreement. Emily lost the apartment, her car was repossessed, and she was forced to move back in with her elderly grandmother in a different state. Meanwhile, my professional life flourished. The book I'd been signing when Emily appeared became my biggest success yet, partly due to media attention around my family situation. Several journalists wrote about the importance of setting boundaries with toxic family members, using my story as an example of refusing to be victimized by relatives. My third book deal increased to $950,000 after my agent negotiated from a position of established success. I purchased a beautiful home in an upscale neighborhood with security cameras and restricted access that ensured Emily could never surprise me again. Emily's desperate plea for help at my book signing had backfired spectacularly. Instead of finding a soft target willing to be manipulated again, she'd encountered someone with resources, documentation, and the strategic thinking to ensure she faced appropriate consequences for years of exploitation. Her attempt to use family guilt as leverage had cost her everything, while establishing my reputation as someone who refuses to be victimized by anybody, including relatives.